I wanted to give you some thoughts and predictions on what I think is happening with the Seahawks here, because one of the things I like to do on this channel is just it's thinking out loud, but I also like to try and guess what the Seahawks are doing, what direction they're going to take. And I do think that things are coming a little bit clearer. And I'm not saying this is going to be 100% correct, but I do think you can put the puzzle pieces together a bit to work out exactly what's going on here. So they've made a number of free agency moves. They have filled a number of positions, so they get veterans at safety and linebacker. They've got a what does George Fant refer to as a utility lineman, according to John Schneider. They've traded for a backup quarterback, so they've filled a lot of different holes now, and it sets them up for the draft to do what they've set out to do in the last two drafts, which is to go with the best players available and not force any needs. And they look positioned to do that. However, there is one position that they have not done anything at the moment, and that is left guard. Damian Lewis is gone. No interior offensive lineman at the guard position, at least, because Nick Harris has come in at center, have come in that you would say, okay, that's a potential hedge or starter at left guard. And I think that speaks to the strength of this draft. And I think if you are sort of wondering what are the Seahawks going to do in the 2024 NFL draft, the first place that you have to go is don't overthink this. The strength of this draft is offensive line, offensive tackle. It's increasingly likely that if they are going to take a best player available approach, that if they stick at number 16, the chances it's going to be an offensive tackle. And that would mean for me, this is my guess, but what I like to do is I like to speak to a number of different people, bounce ideas off them, get some information. And having done that over the last few days, this is what my guess would be, that in an ideal world, and maybe the ideal world involves trading down, but if they're ideally at 16, they would like to be in a position to get Fuaga from Oregon State, Fatanu from Washington, and I think they're the top two. Mims could be an option at Georgia, perhaps Goyton at Oklahoma. But I think with a real firm focus on the first two, because in terms of athleticism and fit and playing style, aggressive playing style, they really seem to fit what Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb want. I don't think Fuaga's going to get past the Bears at number 9 and the Jets at number 10. I think maybe the Jets, having signed offensive linemen in the veteran market, might go in a different direction. But the Bears at 9 send a huge contingency to Oregon State's pro day. They could put him at right guard and plug him in there. I think it's going to be tough to imagine him getting out the top 10. I think he's that good. For me, Fatanu is of that same talent and caliber. And I think there is a chance that Denver at 12, Vegas at 13, Saints at 14, even the Colts at 15 could take him off the board. I think they're the top two realistic picks for number 16. I'm not sure if he's going to be there. If they are, I think they could bring him in. They play them at right tackle. What does that mean for the guard position? It means Abe Lucas at left guard. Now, I know there's a big question mark about Abe Lucas's health and his knee and what it means for the future. But somebody raised this to me this weekend, and I thought it was a great point. What did Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb do at Washington? Jackson Kirkland, who had some serious injury issues, who was playing at tackle, moved inside to guard and finished his Washington career at guard. I just wonder if they'll do the same thing with Abe Lucas, that even if Abe Lucas isn't 100%, do they believe that they can get him into a position where he can take an NFL field and he can start at left guard? Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to go, oh, well, no. Go and get a proper left guard. Go and get somebody to do that. I think Abe Lucas, for what they're looking for, it really fits. Aggressive, athletic. He's got the size. A lot of people thought he was a guard. I didn't. I thought right tackle all the way. A lot of people thought he was a guard going into the draft. They could draft a right tackle at number 16. start that guy and then play Lucas at left guard. And they could even play Fant there if they wanted to. That could be the competition. But the point is, right tackle at number 16, I think if they're going to stick and pick, that is the likely one. And if Fuaga and Furtado are gone, it could be Emerius Mims. Tony Pauline says he's not going to get out the top 20, that he's going to go probably in the teens. And then you've got sort of Guyton, who could go a little bit earlier than people think. So I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that Joe Alt lasts longer than people think as well. But I think they're, in terms of athleticism and what they're looking for, Fuaga, Furtado, then Mims, then maybe Guyton. And I think that's what could be the option number 16. And if you just don't overthink it, if you look at the gap at left guard, you then see, this is the thing. The gap at left guard is a thing, but then you've got John Schneider going on Seattle Sports saying that guards are overpaid and overdrafted. And he kind of gives the sense of an opinion that a lot of people in the NFL have is, I can find a guard. Whether you agree with that or not, a lot of people in the NFL believe that. When John Schneider says what he said on the radio, I think he believes that. So in his world, take a tackle, move Abe Lucas inside, still get something out of Abe Lucas and the investment there. And they really liked Abe Lucas, but you're getting a right tackle and you're tapping into the strength of the draft. You're taking best player available. That is what I think could be what happens at number 16. Now, there is the other option, which is to trade down. And they might do that, especially if Fuaga and Furtado aren't there. And you trade down, you fill out your board for day 2. They could trade down a couple of times if the offers are there. If the offensive tackles are still on the board, it could be that a Green Bay wants to move up. It could be that a Dallas wants to move up. There are other teams that you can imagine wanting to get into the middle of the first round to go and get an offensive lineman or a cornerback. So I think there are going to be offers to move down. And then if you do that, you maybe look at a Cooper Beebe who fits the style. When you actually look at Cooper Beebe's numbers and his physical traits and his playing style, it looks a lot like Quentin Nelson. Now, Quentin Nelson was a top 10 pick. Cooper Beebe isn't. But you can see sort of those comparisons. I do think that a lot of teams are going to look at Jackson Powers-Johnson and they're not going to want to play him at center because he's 330 pounds. They're going to move him to guard where he has played before. So I think they could move down and they could address the offensive line in that way as well. So that is a potential option. But this is why I think perhaps they made the trade for Sam Howell, because I think it comes down to how they view these quarterbacks. I think potentially they were looking to see if they could move up or if they could get to a Drake May or a JJ McCarthy. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that the Seahawks, like seemingly a lot of the league, had a consensus top 4 of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and JJ McCarthy, whatever order you want to put them in, and that they seem like they could be the top 4 picks now because the Vikings are priming themselves to move up. And I think the Seahawks have been shut out of any opportunity to move up and get at that group. And I think they were open to moving Geno Smith, and then they found no market. And then Drew Lock's moved on as part because they could find no market, so they restructured his contract to sort of fix him into this year, which is what Jordan Schultz reported. And that was reported after they'd already sort of been to the combine and sort of talked around and had those discussions with the teams. And I think that's the way it's played out. So now they get to this position where Smith stays, Lock's moved on, they need somebody, and they need somebody for insurance because if they do move down, there's no guarantee they're going to be able to get Michael Penix, who I think they will be interested in. But it's possible that, like a lot of teams in the league, they view Michael Penix as a second-round pick. So if they view Michael Penix as a second-round pick, they're not going to move. They're going to take him in the first round. They're going to want to take him in the second round. So that has an effect on where you can draft a quarterback. And if you plan to trade down, or if you're only prepared to take Michael Penix after trading down, then what you have to consider is that you might trade into a range where he's no longer available. Or you might only be able to trade down to 25 and get a third-round pick, and you're not even going to be in the second round to be in position to take Michael Penix. So although they might have interest in Penix, where is the interest? If they don't think he's a top 20 pick, they ain't going to take him in the top 20. If they only think he's a second-round pick, but they can't get a second-round pick, they ain't going to take him in the second round. If they don't view Bo Nix as an alternative or Spencer Rattler as an alternative or any of these other guys, then all of a sudden you're frozen out of the quarterbacks in this draft. And there's not really much you can do about that. Now, I've mentioned on the blog, I think they're going to have a plan eventually to be a bit more aggressive to go and get a quarterback. But in this situation, if you can't trade up, and because of the way that you've traded away your picks and moved your picks around, if you can't then select Penix in the range where you think he is best, you need somebody to come in and back up Geno Smith, who you don't think is just awful. I don't think Sam Howell's very good, but he's not awful. There are worse backup quarterbacks than him in the NFL. That's why I think they've made this move. So Howell comes in now. If they want to take someone at 16, they can do. And they're not picking in round 2 where they would have ideally wanted Penix. Perhaps they feel really comfortable about picking at 16, and that's why they've done this as well. Or they think, yeah, we're open to trading down from 16. We can't be guaranteed it's going to happen, but if we get a good offer, we'll consider it. And then if we get, say, end up with 2 picks in the second round, maybe they take Michael Penix or one of those picks. But if they can't get back into the second round, or if they pick once at like 35 and they view Penix as more like a 50 type player, maybe they don't take him, so they need a quarterback. So that's kind of what I think is happening here. That's why I think they've taken Sam Howell. And I do think for that reason, it suggests that unless they can manipulate a situation where they have picks in a range where they currently don't, they possibly aren't taking a quarterback in this draft. So my thought process is that the chances are their first pick will be an offensive lineman. Their free agent moves and the one remaining hole suggest that. It might not be that they go out and draft a guard in the first round. It might be a tackle. And then you go and add competition in the middle rounds at guard, where there is a lot of strength and a lot of depth and a lot of interesting options to do that. The only slight problem with this, as I'm talking about it, is the fact that they do have no second round pick and only 1 third round pick now. There are a lot of players. I'd suggest at safety, where I think they could do with some youth and some depth, and linebacker, where again, they could use some youth and some depth, plus the offensive lineman, where I think you'd like to have a few more picks so you can sort of add some quality and some talent in a good draft in rounds 2 and 3, where you've got good players. So for that reason, I think you do have to weigh up. If you could get Cooper Beebe at, say, 35, having moved down from 16 and fill out your board, is that better than taking, let's say, Fuaga or Fatanu, who, again, I don't think are going to be there. So therefore, maybe the question should be, are they better than, is it better to have 35 and second, third round picks and go and take Beebe or Powers Johnson? Or are you better off having the first round pick and then nothing in the second round and just wait until round 3's 81 when you're going to pick? I don't know. I mean, you could make an argument for Ramarius Mims looking like he could be the next Tyrone Smith if you can get him in and develop him properly with his frame and his physique and what he showed and flashes on tape. And it is flashes because he's only played about 8 college games. But, you know, Fuaga and Fatano, you think, well, they could be, the sky's the limit for those guys. They're really, really good. But this is kind of how I am viewing things at the moment. So to sort of break it down, I think if they stick at 16, it's very, very likely they're just going to take the best defensive tackle on their board because that will be best player available, and that will help them fill the gap at left guard because they can just kick Abe Lucas inside, as Washington did with Jackson Kirkland, and they might feel pretty good about that as an offensive line. That might be okay for them, whether you agree or not. They've got players who fit, they've got the style, they've got the aggressive style, and they can move forward with that. If Fuaga, Fatanu are not there and they don't want to take Mims and Goyton, perhaps trading down is more likely, but then you can fill out your board. That possibly brings the option of bringing Michael Penix in round 2, if that's where they view him, if he doesn't go off the board in the first round, which is still a possibility. But it gives you sort of a chance to maybe go and get a different offensive lineman later on and then fill out your board and get other positions. But that's how I'm viewing it right now. And right now, I think their firm focus on is they want Fuaga or Fatanu there to be 16. And if not, trading down and getting more picks might be a viable option. And Howell's come in as insurance because they don't think they can move up and they're not sure if they're going to be able to get Penix. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Like the video, SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. Also, check out the player interviews I've done with Brennan Jackson, Mekhi Wingo, Jalen Harrell, and Malik Mustafa. Great guys. You'll really like listening to them. Please check those videos out. Subscribe so you don't miss any other videos and live streams. Until next time, bye for now.